Hello, fellow Tarnished, and welcome back to another video. As always, I hope you are having a great one. This is going to be a follow-up video on my guide for finding the spirit tuning bell. I'll see if I can find that in my inventory just briefly. If Rena the Witch is not spawning for you. Now, this is something that I know a lot of people have experienced a tough time with. And I made a guide on how to find the bell if Rena is not spawning, if you cannot find the what am I saying? The witch Rena. And that guide was pretty well received. But a lot of you guys, and for some reason I can't find the bell now, of course, a lot of you guys commented and said, you know, I can't find the bell, I can't find Rena, I can't buy the bell from the Twin Maiden husks. What do I do about this? You know, how exactly do I end up using this item? And how do I find it? And I definitely understand that. I know that it's not always incredibly straightforward to find the bell or to find Rena. You know, it's actually pretty complex, which is a little annoying because it's a very useful item. But you know, it's a Souls game, so it's going to be a little bit harder. But I definitely understand the frustrations. So this is the Church of Ella, and essentially, you can start here at the first step, spawn point, and then go down to the Church of Ella. Now, typically speaking, newer players to the game, once they have received Torrent, which requires activating a few Sites of Grace, you will be able to wait at this Site of Grace until nighttime, and then Rena will be sitting on this ledge right here, okay? There's even going to be a message here. Behold, love. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty normal thing, and if you're early enough in the game, and you have Torrent, which again, this is Torrent right here. It's the horse, or the steed. You'll be able to find Rena waiting here for you during the nighttime. You talk to Rena, she gives you the bell, and then she'll give you the wolf ashes, and I hope I can at least show you guys those. For some reason, I'm not good at finding the bell, but anyway. And then, I know that there have been a lot of questions about this also. You don't equip or use the bell. You'll notice over here there's a pouch option, and you'll hit switch on one of these slots, and then you will equip one of these spirit ashes. For all of you, it's probably going to be the lone wolf ashes, because that's what she gives you. So again, I have the ancestral follower equipped, just because that's what I prefer at this point in the game. But anyway, that's essentially the most normal way to get the, you know, the bell, the spirit calling, spirit summoning bell, and then to get the ashes. Again, you don't equip the bell, you just equip the ashes, and then you use the bell in certain areas. And I'll show you guys how to do that really quick, because I know there have also been a lot of questions on that, and I want to go ahead and clarify that. Again, you know, it's really not made very clear, and I will say even a lot of guides online don't make it very clear. So, essentially, when you reach an area where you can use, again, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here, where you can use the ashes, you'll notice that this icon in the left-hand side of the screen pops up. It looks a bit like a gate with some lettering underneath it. Now, there are also small pylons scattered throughout the world, and those also indicate when you can use the spirit calling. I think that there's one around here, but we're not going to look for it. And then you simply bring up the D-pad, or the pouch slot, and then you tap on the D-pad, for example, and you ring the bell, and you summon the follower that you have, okay? Or the spirit ashes that you have equipped. Whatever that ends up looking like. So again, this is a good example here. Get him. There we go. And that's how you do that. It really is very straightforward and pretty simple once you understand it. But if you don't know what you're looking for, let's see if we can get this guy here. It's obviously going to be tougher to understand, okay? So essentially, that is how you use that. And if you guys get the items from Rena and you're still wondering, well, how do I use the bell? That's how you do that. You don't need to find the bell. You don't need to equip it. Well, you do need to have it. She needs to give you the bell. But it's not something you have to, strictly speaking, use from your inventory. You use the ashes instead. Another consideration, and something you guys will notice, if you look up at the left-hand side of the screen, the upper left-hand side there's a blue bar. That is your FP, okay? And in order to use some summons, you have to have a certain amount of FP. For example, let's go back here and look at these. The Ancestral Follower ashes require 63 FP. The Lone Wolf ashes require 55. The Jellyfish 31. These Militiamen, the Skeletal Militiamen 44. So they all tend to be pretty different. I only have 81 FP points total. I'm more of a strength-focused build, as you guys can see here. But yeah, essentially, you've got to have enough FP to use it, so if you don't, you'll have to level that up a little bit more, at least until you have the FP requirement to summon whatever you want to. And that's also something else that you want to be aware of. Now, if you guys are early enough in the game and you haven't traveled to the Roundtable Hold yet, or you haven't unlocked it, and Rena still won't spawn, my recommendation for that would be traveling around the Church of Ella and then fast traveling back to it. Essentially just running around the area, fast traveling back, and doing that several times, because sometimes that is something that can apparently cause Rena to spawn. Not always, but again, I've heard that that can be a temporary fix if you guys are experiencing that as well. So essentially, if you're still really early on in the game, that's what you're going to want to do. However, once you have progressed a certain amount, or once you've defeated Godric, one or the other, you know, if you defeat Godric, then you will most likely gain access to the Table of Lost Grace or the Roundtable Hold. And if you've made enough progress, for example, if you've skipped Godric, if you've traveled up here, you know, into Liurnia of the Lakes, or if you've traveled to Caelid or the Weeping Peninsula, you'll gain access to this as well. I gained access to the Table of Lost Grace before I beat Godric, so it's not necessarily something you have to do. Once you gain access to the Table of Lost Grace, as far as I understand, Rena will not spawn, okay? So if you've made it to that point, it is essentially too far. And I think that, again, that is really worth noting. It's something a lot of early game players don't fully understand, because, again, the game really doesn't make it very clear. Okay? So essentially, that is something we want to be aware of. And it's something you really have to keep in mind. Because if you've made it to a certain point, Rena just won't be there. What you're going to do at that point is you're going to travel to the Roundtable Hold right here. Okay? And again, there are a number of different things you can try. I'm trying to remember to cover all of them in this video. But generally speaking, for most players, they'll be able to go over here, okay, and travel down this hallway. And hopefully this has enough light. I did want to use the torch for that reason. And then you'll make it over here to the Twin Maiden Husks. Now, if you hit purchase, they will have the items for sale that you need. The Spirit Calling Bell, which is 100 runes, and the Lone Wolf Ashes. That is 500 runes. So it's a 600 rune spend overall, which is really not that expensive. You can acquire that many runes fairly easily just by spending a bit of time, you know, essentially fighting some enemies. Whoops. Anyway, and that's usually pretty straightforward. I would say that probably for 70% of the players, that's probably going to solve the problem. Now, if it doesn't, another recommendation is trying to progress a little bit farther, because you might be stuck in a sort of weird in-between where you've made it far enough in the game where Rena won't show up, but you might not be quite far enough along where the Spirit Calling Bell is available from the Twin Maidens. Just for reference, I did have to travel here and purchase the items from the Twin Maiden Husks. And that was before I beat Margit, okay? So that's something you want to keep in mind. Essentially, you don't have to really get that far, but you do have to get far enough, okay? So it's sort of a weird, kind of awkward in-between. Which this game, it seems to have a few of those. I absolutely love the game. I'm a huge fan of the Souls games. And I think Elden Ring is fantastic. I've put a ton of hours into it already, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. But sometimes there are, some requirements that are just a little bit tougher to understand. So I will say that if you've made it this far, and the Twin Maidens don't have the bell or the ashes, what you want to do is you want to try to activate a prompt, or get a prompt to come up on screen that will tell you that the Twin Maiden husks have new items for purchase. This is something I believe I remember experiencing. I'm just breaking everything in here. And it was when I made it to a certain point. Now, you can also... Okay. You can also go around the Roundtable Hold and talk to the NPCs within. Now, I'm a little bit farther along, so the NPCs that you guys can talk to might be a little bit different, okay? But anyway, go around and try to exhaust as much dialogue as you can with any of the NPCs in the area. Talk to this NPC over here, Roderica. You can talk about spirit tuning, which I've already done some of. You can just talk in general. And again, some of these are found out in the world. There we go. There's a nice gesture. But anyway. So they're not always going to be here. But you can talk to Hugh. Try to, ask him other questions. And spoiler alert, there might be some dialogue here that you guys aren't expecting yet. I'm really trying to keep that to a minimum. But sometimes with how these guides work, there will be some spoilers. And, essentially just go around as much as you can, and talk to everybody, talk to this NPC. I feel like there are others, that are from the start. Let's see, I think there's another one around here. Or a couple of them. There used to be, I don't know where they've gone. There used to be a few extras in this room also that you can talk to. This is the room that has the two fingers in it. This won't be open yet until you defeat a shard bearer. So that's not really a concern. But talk to everybody that you possibly can. And then once you've talked to everyone, I would say go ahead and, travel back to some point in the world. Okay? Whether it's the Weeping Peninsula, what have you. And spend a bit of time exploring, doing some other things, and essentially just, passing time, making progress. And then once you've done that for a bit, which again, it's going to look pretty different for everyone, depending on what you want to do in the game, you can go ahead and travel back again to the Roundtable Hold. And essentially, you are just trying to get to the point where you have the availability with these items, because the Twin Maiden husks should end up having them, and I've heard some people saying that there might be a glitch that does prevent them from having them. I've heard some people saying that it might not be possible if you've done a certain route, but I think it's more or less a possibility. I think that pretty much every player should have the ability to buy these items from the Twin Maiden husks. And, again, it's just the routes that you can take, the progress you make. It's a Souls game. It's not incredibly straightforward. And, I'm a big fan of that. When Rena wasn't spawning, I pretty much immediately thought, okay, well, I've probably made it too far. That was kind of my thought process. And I learned that you could buy items from the Twin Maiden husks, and sure enough, they had the items that I wanted, so I purchased them. There are a number of different bell bearings that I've brought back here as well, which is something you can do to buy other items. You don't need a bell bearing. to buy the ashes and the bell. That's not necessary. They'll have them just sort of on hand once you've made it to a certain point. But again, you know, something you want to keep in mind, I would say try all of these things that you can. You know, basically just test out every possible strategy. And I would say if you've beaten, you know, Margit and you've beaten, you know, Godric, and you've talked to pretty much everyone, and you still don't have access to them, I would say at that point, there is a possibility that it is a glitch. But I find it unlikely that players would experience that. Again, you know, obviously there are different outcomes for different players in different situations, but yeah, it's not overly difficult to find these items. Ideally, you want to go to Rena right away, but you know, it's still something I thought I would talk about a little bit more. You know, the first video I made was pretty straightforward, pretty concise, and probably still, you know, ranted a little bit because I tend to do that. But yeah, essentially, again, just as another refresher, when you see that icon pop up in the left-hand corner, which is only in certain areas, it's not going to be in every area, okay? I think that's a common misconception. Then you can use the ashes. Remember, you don't use the bell. You use the ashes, and then you can spawn, you know, a helper, okay? And it is really helpful. I mean, look at that. That was a perfect combo there. And essentially, yeah, I have found that to be a pretty good fix. You know, it's not overly straightforward, and I'm just kind of having some fun now. I like to do this in videos sometimes, just kind of mess around. See if we can get this guy. We're getting a little bit of lag. Ooh. Here we go. Yeah, a little bit of lag there. I don't know. I've had more of that lately. I don't know if it's a patch thing or what. Oh, you're way off target there, buddy. Doesn't really matter too much. These guys have some cool armor also, which if you're pretty early on in the game can be pretty fun to pick up. Also, I spent a lot of time here harvesting... Whoops, there's a wolf there. Harvesting runes in the beginning. It's a pretty good farming spot for me, personally. I got a lot of runes out of it. A lot of time spent here, you know. Eventually I upgraded to fighting the troll. And then I found the troll carriage, which I upgraded to that. For my rune harvesting. And then everyone eventually makes it to the bird. But yeah, I mean, this is a really good item to have. Especially if you're not super familiar with Souls games. And, you know, it's nice. It's very convenient. So, remember, you should be able to find it. You should be able to use it. I really hope it's not a glitch that's impacting players, because that would be pretty sad. You know, From Soft, what am I saying? From Soft. They put a ton of work into the games. And, you know, if it's not available because of some glitch or something, I would be really surprised. So anyway, I would think it's a possibility. If you guys found this guide to be a little long, I apologize for that. Again, I try to cover this as thoroughly as I can. You know, I see a lot of guides online that just, you know, bring it up and say, well, you should be fine. Just go here and do this and you're good to go. You'll find the item. And that's going to work for some people. See if we can get this guy with just my fists here. But anyway, it's going to work for some people, but it's certainly not going to work for everyone. You know, it's going to really depend. There's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all fix for this item. It's getting dark, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Yeah, also the game is stuttering quite a bit. I was getting a lot less of that, so I don't know why that's kind of back. But anyway, guys, if you found this helpful, feel free to go ahead and, you know, drop it a like. I really appreciate that. It really brightens my day. And, you know, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I know that on the original video for this guide, I got a lot of questions about, you know, different concerns. And that's really what this video is based on, is just adding more of a comprehensive guide and really trying to get people as informed. Whoops, I can't level up yet. As I possibly can, because again, you know, it's not always easy. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great one, and adios.